You will hear a conversation between a doctor and a patient named Sarah who is experiencing anxiety. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good morning, welcome to Greenview Medical Center. You must be Sarah Thompson. I see you have an appointment with Dr. Wilson in our psychology department today. Could I just confirm your patient ID number?
Yes, it's T759208.
Perfect, thank you. And could I get your email address for our records?
It's sarah.t@healthcare.org.
Great, and I see your appointment is for the 9th of August. Your insurance provider is
Health Plus.
Thank you. Dr. Wilson will see you shortly.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 5 to 10. Hello Sarah, please come in and have a seat. How are you feeling today?
Not great, to be honest. I've been having a lot of trouble sleeping at night. I just lie there with my mind racing.
I'm sorry to hear that. Could you tell me more about what's been happening?
Well, I constantly feel worried about everything. I try to sleep, but I just can't switch off. I'm always thinking about worst-case scenarios.
I see. Have you noticed any changes in your appetite?
Not really. I'm eating normally. It's just the constant worry and the sleep problems that are affecting me.
And how long has this been going on?
About 3 weeks now. It started after I got promoted at work.
Congratulations on the promotion. That's a significant career change. Do you think that might be connected to how you're feeling?
Definitely. I'm worried I won't be able to handle the new responsibilities. The expectations are much higher now.
I understand. Has anything like this happened before?
Yes, I had a similar episode about 5 years ago when I was finishing university. I felt overwhelmed then too.
Thank you for sharing that. It's helpful to know about your previous experience with anxiety. Is there anything in your family history that might be relevant? Any relatives with similar issues?
My mother has anxiety, and my grandmother did too. So I suppose there could be a genetic predisposition.
That's useful information. And how about your physical health? Any ongoing conditions we should consider?
No, I'm generally healthy.
Good. Now, some doctors might recommend medication immediately for anxiety, but I'd like to try some non-medical approaches first.
Why is that?
Well, your condition appears to be mild, and often anxiety related to specific life changes responds well to therapy and lifestyle adjustments. Also, many people experience side effects with medication, and I prefer to start with other approaches when appropriate.
That makes sense.
The goal of the therapy I'm suggesting is to develop coping strategies that will help you manage stressful situations better, particularly with your new job role.
Okay, what would you recommend I do?
I'd suggest several things. First, practice daily mindfulness exercises. Even just 10 minutes each morning can make a difference. Also, maintaining a consistent sleep schedule is crucial. Try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day. Increasing physical activity will help reduce stress hormones, and you might want to reduce some work responsibilities temporarily if possible. Many patients also find joining a support group helpful.
That sounds like a lot to do.
You don't need to implement everything at once. Perhaps choose 2 approaches to start with. I'd recommend the mindfulness exercises and the sleep schedule. We can discuss your progress at our follow-up appointment.
All right, I'll try those first.
Excellent. Do you have any other questions for me today?
No, that covers everything. Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome, Sarah. I'll see you at your next appointment. Section 2. You will hear a recording of an administrator giving information about a professional certification exam. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your interest in our professional certification program. I'd like to give you all the important details you'll need about the application process, assessment, and contact information. Let me start with the application process. The applicant must submit the application online through our official website. This is the only way we accept applications now. We no longer accept paper applications as we did in the past. Once you've completed the online form, you'll receive an automatic confirmation email. Regarding the timeline, I know many of you are eager to know when results will be available. After completing all parts of the assessment, results will be available after 14 days. We used to take 21 days, but we've managed to improve our processing systems. Please don't call before the 14-day period as our staff won't be able to provide any information. Now about the practical assessment. The practical assessment takes place on Wednesday of the exam week. Not Monday as stated in some of our older brochures, and definitely not Friday, as that's when our staff have their administrative day. For the assessment day, what document must the applicant bring? A medical certificate is required. This needs to be dated within the last 6 months and must clearly state that you're physically able to complete the practical components. A proof of address or recommendation letter won't be sufficient. You specifically need the medical certificate. The format of the assessment might interest you. The applicant will complete the assessment with an individual examiner who will guide you through the various tasks. We previously conducted these in group settings, but found individual assessments provide more accurate results. We've also tested computer-based self-guided programs, but are not implementing those at this time.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 16 to 20.
Regarding administrative details, the processing time for certificates is 30 days after the results are published. Please don't expect them any sooner as they need to go through several verification steps. The examination cost is 245 CAD, which must be paid when you submit your online application. This fee covers all assessment components and your certificate if you pass. If you need to send any physical documents, though most things are handled online now, please mail applications to the Certification Department at 125 Maple Avenue, Suite B4, Toronto. Make sure you include your application reference number on any correspondence. For electronic communications, our email contact is info@certifications.org. Our response time is typically within 2 business days. Finally, if you need to speak to someone directly, our customer service phone is 416-555-8700. The office is open Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. I hope this information has been helpful. Are there any questions before we move on to discussing the exam content and preparation resources?
Section 3. You will hear a lecture on business research methodologies and global business operations. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
The business landscape has transformed dramatically in recent years. Digital technology has changed how businesses operate globally. The development of cloud computing has enabled even small companies to coordinate international operations seamlessly, allowing for real-time collaboration across time zones and borders. To succeed in international markets, companies need to develop cultural intelligence. Organizations that understand and adapt to local customs and business practices gain significant advantages over competitors who apply standardized approaches across markets. Regarding sustainability, emerging markets offer particularly interesting opportunities. Companies implementing sustainable practices in regions like Southeast Asia and Latin America can create significant competitive advantages while simultaneously addressing pressing environmental concerns. For effective global leadership, 2 factors prove essential: adaptability and communication. Leaders who can adjust their approach for different cultural contexts while maintaining clear communication across diverse teams tend to be most successful in international business environments. That concludes our overview of these topics. In your upcoming assignments, I expect you to consider which research methodologies would be most appropriate for investigating global business challenges, and to demonstrate awareness of the factors influencing international operations. Are there any questions before we move on to the next topic?
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 25 to 30.
Let's begin with research methodologies. Understanding these is crucial for anyone conducting business research. Quantitative research is a fundamental approach in business studies. This involves collecting numerical data to identify patterns and relationships. For example, analyzing sales figures to predict future market trends or using statistical methods to understand consumer behavior. When we talk about surveys in business research, we are referring to a method that requires participants to respond to standardized questions. This approach helps researchers collect data from large populations in a structured format, though critics note that the depth of information can be limited. Moving on to interviews is a research method. This allows for exploration of complex issues through guided discussions. It's particularly valuable when you need to understand nuanced perspectives or gather expert opinions on business challenges. Case studies are another important methodology. This involves in-depth examination of specific organizations or events. When researchers want to understand how a particular company succeeded or failed in implementing a strategy, case studies provide valuable insights through detailed analysis. Content analysis is perhaps less commonly discussed but equally important. This method analyzes written or spoken communication systematically. Business researchers might use this to evaluate corporate communications, advertising messages, or even social media content to understand underlying trends or messaging strategies. Finally, mixed methods deserves attention. This combines multiple research methods to validate findings. By triangulating data from different sources, researchers can develop more comprehensive and reliable insights than using a single method alone. It's worth noting that each methodology has its critics. For instance, qualitative approaches like case studies have been criticized for being overly subjective, while purely quantitative methods may miss important contextual factors.
Section 4. You will hear a wildlife biologist discussing invasive rodent species. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today I'll be discussing the Siberian jumping mouse, a problematic invasive species that's been causing significant ecological concerns across multiple regions. Let's start with some basic characteristics. The Siberian jumping mouse typically measures around 15 centimeters in length. Its appearance is quite distinctive, gray or brown with a striped pattern running along its back. Many people confuse it with other native mice species, but the striped pattern is the key identifying feature. These creatures are highly adaptable and can thrive in various environments. Their preferred habitat includes grasslands and rocky areas where they can easily hide from predators. They're particularly well suited to arid environments but have shown remarkable ability to adapt to new conditions. Regarding their diet, the Siberian jumping mouse primarily consumes seeds and insects. Their feeding habits make them particularly problematic in agricultural settings. They're opportunistic feeders, which contributes to their successful invasion of new territories. Looking at their geographic range, they're native to parts of Asia and Northern Europe, particularly the colder regions. In these native habitats, their conservation status is considered stable with healthy populations. However, in the Americas, where they've been introduced, their numbers are estimated to be growing at an alarming rate of 25% annually. The key challenges of their increasing population are numerous and concerning. Let me explain these impacts in detail. On ecosystems, they compete with native species for limited resources, particularly food and nesting sites. This competition can disrupt the delicate balance of local ecosystems, sometimes leading to decline in native species populations. On agriculture, they consume valuable grain crops, causing significant economic losses for farmers. The damage isn't limited to consumption alone, they create extensive damage to infrastructure like irrigation systems and storage facilities. From a public health perspective, they potentially spread diseases that can affect both wildlife and human populations. While not as dangerous as some other rodent species, they still present health concerns that warrant attention. Government responses to invasive species like the Siberian jumping mouse have focused primarily on controlling their spread. What aspect of invasive species is most strictly controlled by government policies? Most countries focus on regulating the transportation across borders, implementing strict biosecurity measures at ports and border crossings. When considering management approaches, what is the main consideration in managing invasive species? While scientific research and financial resources are important factors, environmental impact remains the primary concern when developing control strategies. Any intervention must first be evaluated for its potential effects on native ecosystems before implementation. Recently, some success has been achieved using integrated management approaches that combine multiple control methods. However, complete eradication has proven extremely difficult once these species become established. Next week, we'll discuss successful case studies of invasive species management, focusing on approaches that have shown promise in various ecological contexts.
That is the end of the test.